in African countries, I think edge data centers, smaller sites like we operate in Durban, those are starting to proliferate. It makes a lot of sense because you want the content to be as close to the end user so they have an amazing experience. You want to be able to access content, video, and get it straight away and consume it. I think from a cloud perspective, though, that becomes a bit more challenged in the rest of Africa, just by way of economies of scale, it's large-scale infrastructure, and I think that's going to develop in hubs. So at the moment, the major hub is South Africa, and then the two other hubs that are starting to emerge is Nigeria and Kenya.
But which is interesting because there are, as we see with data centers elsewhere, power is a big debate and water is a big debate. Why is that not happening as these hubs are forming?
Yeah, two important debates, and actually becoming even more topical as everyone becomes more aware of sustainability. Actually, there's a lot of myths as well. So maybe the easy one to address is water, because water use comes up quite often. Actually, we use technology. So firstly, we operate in a water scarce environment. South Africa's water scarce. We have large facilities in Cape Town where came close to day zero. So we incorporate technology. It's called mixture of free air cooling and a closed loop system. So we actually don't use water in the ongoing process. So actually, if you take all our sites and aggregate our water use, we use probably 1/20th of the average golf course in America over the course of a year. So a bit of a myth with regards to water use. Renewable energy, that's probably more challenged. And there we're a little bit in the hands of our national utility. They've done really well. So we now moved into a power surplus position. But we've got a renewable energy target. We want to get to 100% renewable energy by 2035.
How do you get there?
So again, we're in the hands a little bit of Eskom. They obviously, we're an emerging market, 80% fossil fueled. They have a path to improve that, but we want to accelerate that. So we've invested $125 million in our own utility scale solar plant. It's 120 megawatts. It's located about 100 kilometers outside of Johannesburg, and we'll be wheeling that power across Eskom's grid to our sites in Cape Town and Johannesburg.
Do you see that being the models that we need to see in some of these other hubs, as you call it? I mean, is it a combination of private and public coordination?
Yeah, I see that happening more and more. I mean, if you take Teraco, we don't just connect ourselves onto the network, we're actually investing in the grid as well. So we're building substations, whether it's for the municipality or for Eskom. We'll end up building, the substations as well as the connections to our sites. So we're investing in the grid, alongside them. And to the extent that they aren't able to provide us with an accelerated renewal path, we'll do it ourselves.
Where does AI and higher computes come into the conversation? Because we've also been talking to quite a lot of people about AI data centers and more of them that are being rolled out. Is that something that Teraco is thinking about? And do you think maybe the African continent is a bit early in that development?
So I think I'd differentiate AI adoption to AI data centers, because I don't think the two need to necessarily go hand in hand, and I'll come back to that. But these large AI data centers that you're reading about, it's almost like weekly coming up in the news. Large sites, hundreds of megawatts or gigawatts being built in the US, in the Middle East, and in China. Their cost of electricity is obviously a huge factor. So the cost of electricity is like between 6 to 8 US cents. I don't see these big sites being developed in South Africa or actually on the African continent. I think it becomes a little bit more challenged to do that. What I do see, and what we'd like to see coming into our facilities, is the inference model. So those big gigawatt sites is the training models, the learning models. Once that's been refined into an inference model, or let's call it the production model, that needs to be, again, like content, close to the end user, because you're throwing a whole lot of information at this model, and then you want to get an answer as quickly as possible and then act on it. It could be a prompt, it could be interactive with a bot. You want to get an answer super quickly. So we'd want to get those models into our sites, and if you add that up and aggregate, it potentially, it could be sizable demand.
Why not AI data centers, though?
So our data centers are AI enabled. I do see AI coming. I just don't see these huge gigawatt factories coming to us.
The demand or the supply?
I just see it, from a power perspective, it'll be challenging to do a gigawatt site on the African continent at this point in time.
So then what is needed to enable some of these to get to where you see as maximum operation?
So a function of two things: power infrastructure, gigawatts, a lot of power. And the second one is the price around it. So again, you're competing against these markets where the Middle East, very low cost of electricity, some of the US markets, 6 to 8 US cents. You'll have to get the cost of electricity down to that price.